Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is not To Back or Not To Back. We are skipping To Back or Not To Back this week. This happens around this season. We don't have enough campaigns, and so we alternate weeks or do things like that. We will figure it out. In any case, this video instead is a recap of the 50 games I backed, the 50 first games I backed, or something along those lines. I'll figure out the title later, but the basic idea, and I've done videos along these lines before. I've done, I think, 3 way back in 2020 when I first started using YouTube. I did 3 of these videos where I took a look at some of the earlier campaigns I had backed, talking about, you know, where they were, did they stick around, things like that. I'll link to some of those down below so you can check them out. This is continuing, but restarting as well, that series. For today, I'm going to be going over 50 games, the 50 first games that I backed on Kickstarter, and going through where they are, did they stick around, all of that, and as well as a quick summary at the end. It's an interesting conversation because honestly, I kind of expected that these are the first 50. I've backed 277 games on Kickstarter as of right now. I don't know what I have on GameFound, and I don't know what I have for late pledges. Those are a little harder to track. Well, GameFound separate, but late pledges, I don't have a good database for that at the moment. But so these are going over the first 50 games I backed on Kickstarter, talking about where they are, as well as a quick summary of what's going on with them, and I guess general thoughts on how crowdfunding has done for me overall. I would say I walked into this video expecting a bit more gloom results in the sense that maybe I should be backing fewer games, but honestly I'm kind of happy with the results, at least based on how these first 50 went. This is a series I will continue in some way at some form, but the only problem is, as you continue to go through the series, it gets harder and harder to have all of them being games you played. In fact, even today, with these 50 games, 2 of them are still unplayed. And so with that, Technically three. With that, let's go ahead and start this off. Starting off the bat with the very first, these first like 5 or 6 are before I really descended into the Kickstarter journey, so to speak. These first 5 or 6 were games that I just backed because I heard of a game or knew about a game. So let's start off with Flashpoint. Flashpoint Fire Rescue Extreme Danger. Flashpoint was a game that I had played and really enjoyed the overall puzzle of it. Pandemic was one of the first games we got in our collection, and Flashpoint was one that we followed up with and really enjoyed what it did. And so when they had this, you know, Extreme Danger with more miniatures and more Flashpoint and more content, this was the very first Kickstarter that I ever backed. Period. Ever. Or at least on this account. If I backed anything else, I don't know where it is. This is the first Kickstarter I ever backed, and Flashpoint is gone. Flashpoint unfortunately left my collection. It's one of those games where I do really enjoy it, but ultimately I found that I enjoyed it for a long time. It stuck around for like 5 years or whatnot, and it's a game that I still am always happy to table and play, but it is one that didn't stick around past those 5 years, and so all expansions are gone with it as well. And so that's number 1, I guess. From there we have Alien Frontiers 4th edition. Alien Frontiers, this is not really Alien Frontiers. I already had Alien Frontiers. This specifically was for some of the extras or expansion content or factions or whatnot. I don't remember exactly what was in this. There may have been rocket dice at one point. There were stuff that I went ahead and got for this campaign. But this, like Flashpoint, was still an expansion. This was in the phase of Kickstarter where I wasn't exploring things on Kickstarter, rather I was getting expansion content or standalone expansion games for games that I already knew that I liked. We'll get shortly to the very first full-on new game I backed, but this is Alien Frontiers content, and again, Alien Frontiers is a game I love and enjoy and eventually moved on from. It's another one that stuck around for years, it's another great game, but this one is also gone. From there we have The Resistance, Hostile Intent, and Hidden Agenda. If you're noticing a trend here, then you're not wrong. This is the continued trend of just more small stuff that are extras and expansions. The Resistance, Hostile Intent, and Hidden Agenda gave you hidden roles and other content for the game The Resistance. The problem is I already had the Resistance Avalon, and this was kind of trying to make Resistance into Resistance Avalon Plus, and it may well have worked, but I just found that I stuck with the Resistance Avalon. Even Resistance Avalon is finally gone, having finally been replaced by Quest, which incorporates Resistance Avalon into it, and I think both thematically and mechanically, the truth is mechanically this kind of brings it up to par, but thematically I always preferred Resistance Avalon, and it's one our game group got used to playing, and so I actually got this one. Kind of stuck around for a year or 2, but I found that we just played Avalon every single time instead, and so it's another one that moved on. So we're 0 for 3 so far on games that have been kept, but don't worry, those numbers get significantly better by the time we get to the end of this video. Then we have One Night Ultimate Werewolf Daybreak. I already had One Night Ultimate Werewolf, I loved One Night Ultimate Werewolf, and so we dove into Daybreak as well. This is the first that's still here. This is Daybreak that's still here in my collection. Some of the other One Night Ultimate games, the offshoots, I haven't bothered keeping, but Daybreak is one that I still have. I no longer have Vampire, I no longer have Alien, but I do have the original One Night Ultimate Werewolf, and I have Daybreak as well. And so this is the 4th campaign so far, and the first one that stuck around. We then have One Night Resistance. Again, the trend continues, and this was not a good game. This was not a good game, and so it's gone. That's where we are. It's gone. One Night Resistance is gone. It's one that kind of was trying to merge One Night Werewolf, as well as Resistance. Again, you're seeing these are the games I'm backing at the moment, and this is one that left because just it wasn't the best of both worlds. It was the worst of both worlds combined. Which brings us to Coup Rebellion. Again, the trend is very evident at this point. It's basically, you know, Travis Chance and indie boards and cards basically have their hooks firmly into me. And this is another one where I played Coup. I loved Coup. Coup stuck around in my collection for years. Coup Rebellion did not. You see, even though I had Coup first and I had Coup last, Coup is now finally gone, but left like maybe a year ago. It's a great game. It's a great, solid, simple deduction and bluffing game. Not really deduction, more bluffing than deduction. It's a game that's been replaced by Skull and Cockroach Poker for me as far as the games I choose and pick and play. But Coup Rebellion was in this intermediate area. I got Coup Rebellion because I loved Coup, and Coup Rebellion gave you more roles, more expansion, more content, and all of that stuff. And that was great in theory, but in practice, it didn't have the elegance of Coup. Because of the way you had to interplay different roles, most of the time it was the same role blocked itself. And so you didn't have the elegance and interplay of like 5 or 6 interconnected roles. You had a ton more roles, but without the interconnectedness of them. And so Coup Rebellion stuck around for like maybe 6 months before realizing that I just didn't like it as much as regular Coup. And so that one left. Coup stuck around for a long time, but eventually left as well. And I think this next one is the first standalone game, Santorini. This is the first game on this list where I backed a game in and of itself, not because of expansion content. This is from Gavin Roxley, from Gavin Brown of Roxley Games. Santorini is still in my collection. This is the second game that's in my collection still, and the first standalone game that I backed, and the first standalone game that's still in my collection. Santorini is excellent. I got this way back in the day, and granted, you can get this like for like 18 bucks now, and I paid like $65 or whatever it was. I did get the extras and the expansions and the stuff that became, that was not part of the retail edition, so what I got theoretically is nicer and cooler, but practically speaking, if you want this game, pay the 20 bucks for it, and you'll get 98% of the experience. You'll miss some of the expansion cards, you can always pick up the expansion anyway. So yeah, it's a very highly accessible game. I probably overpaid for it, but it's a game that has stuck around for a very long time, so I'm not really complaining about this. I backed this during the original Kickstarter. I don't even know how far back that was. I don't even want to scroll. Let's scroll through updates. Let's see how far back this goes as far as the original Kickstarter. But it's one that stuck around because of how simple and elegant it is. I find it's one that I go through phases. I'll pull it out and play it, you know, today and then tomorrow or whatever it is, but then I'll go 6 months without pulling it out and playing it, and then when I do play it, I'm reminded of just how good it is and how much I enjoy it. It is a abstract game. Here we go. Funded in 2016. 2016 is where we started to slowly move towards a drift in like actually just backing way too many things, although this is still not yet the one that pushed me over the edge. In fact, even now I'm realizing there are some that I forgot on here, so we'll get to it shortly. But maybe I'll try to figure out a way to catalog all the ones I forgot, because we have a bonus pick shortly that will not count, sort of. Anyways, this is Santorini. Santorini is one that it's elegant play combined with powers and abilities from Roxley Games. I think is their first big foray into the Kickstarter space and into the name that they have now. And it's one that stuck around. I still enjoy playing it. I still think it's highly tactical. I still think it's highly variable. I think it gives you quick, enjoyable, rewarding play, and it's still here today. Then we have Brass. Now, I think before Brass, I could be wrong on the exact timeline here, but I think before Brass, I backed Rising Sun. Well, I should rephrase that as I know I backed Rising Sun, but I totally forgot that I backed Rising Sun because it's not in my Kickstarter log. I went on a group pledge with a friend, so we both got it and just had it passed over to me. But yeah, I went on a group pledge with a friend, so I can't really comment on, I mean, I could comment on it. Rising Sun is gone, and it's, technically counts against my count of games that I kept, but it's one that I forgot that I backed because it's not in my Kickstarter log. Again, this applies to all late pledges as well. But Brass and Industrial Evolution, this is one where I still have half of it, but I count this as a win. I got rid of Lancashire, but I kept Birmingham. The two are very similar, and I think Birmingham is just slightly better at what it does. Slightly more variable, slightly less in terms of the random luck of when you're selling to distant markets. I think they're both fantastic. I just think Birmingham is a tiny notch above, and they're similar enough that I don't need both in my collection. But I backed this way back when they had the Kickstarter, and I really overall enjoy this. I still enjoy it. It's in my top 100. A bunch of these games are in my top 100. We'll come back to that doing the recap at the end of this. But Brass Birmingham is one that it's still like, it was a good back. It was a good back. It gave you a good game with quality components, a game that is currently the number 3 game of all time on Board Game Geek. It's an incredible experience, and one that, I mean, this is what did pretty well as far as a Kickstarter game that is the number 3 on all time Board Game Geek, and you're like, yes, what about, I think actually, is it number 2? It might be number 2. It might be number 2 on Board Game Geek. And then Gloomhaven's number 1 as well, although Gloomhaven has seen a ton of retail releases, so has Brass for that matter. Both fantastic games. Did not back Gloomhaven, unfortunately. But yeah, Brass from Roxley Games, fantastic Euro that stuck around. We have Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea from Gameling Games. This did not stick around. I enjoyed it. I played it a few times. 3, maybe 4. I think 3 times I played this one. This one, Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea, is a solid game that I really enjoyed. I also found it's the kind of game that unless I was prepared to play it again and again and again with the same group, then I wasn't really going to play it. I just found that I wasn't the kind of person. I don't want to have to memorize all of your abilities, and the problem is I have to constantly look at your board or just be surprised when your thing that you upgraded comes and bites me. And so that's the problem with this game. I found that you kind of have to really play as every faction in order to be able, and on a semi-regular basis too, and in order to be able to competently play the game. I thought it was very well done. I think it's a great game. I just think it's the kind of game you need to play with the same group again and again and again. It's worth noting around this time that Santorini was the first standalone game. This was like a real decision as to whether to back or not to back this one. I was like saying that, do I not? Do I? It looks so cool. Will I like it? It's like $70. That's a lot. This is the first time I was branching out of a game system that I knew I liked. Granted, many of those game systems that I knew I liked didn't work for me, but Santorini is the first standalone game. Brass was also a decision. Rising Sun was easy. Rising Sun was following off of Blood Rage, and I was like, well, of course I want this game. It's part of the trilogy and whatnot. And so Rising Sun, even though I didn't keep it, was an easy choice that I did not worry about at all. Brass was another hard choice. Brass was another time when I'm looking at the numbers and trying to say, do I need this? At the time I had Age of Industry. Age of Industry, which Brass and Age of Industry are very, very related from Martin Wallace. They're very similar in their gameplay. And it's like, I love Age of Industry. Do I need to pay like $100 to get this premium, very cool looking version of the game? Ultimately, I did side with yes, but it was still a hard choice. And then we have Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea, another hard one, another one I strongly wrestled with, but it just looked so cool. It looked like the kind of game I would enjoy. My group was loving games like Blood Rage at the time. This looked like another game that would give you that degree of just powers and abilities and variability and tons of stuff, and it does deliver on those, but it was a hard choice in terms of me just choosing whether to back it or not. Which is where we move to the next one, which is Dice Stone Season 2. Dice Stone Season 2 was another hard choice. I had played Dice Stone Season 1, to be clear, so I had played Season 1, so that made it a little easier, but still, this was like $200 for the all-in, for the crate of everything, and it looked very premium, it looked very cool. I like Dice Stone, but do I like Dice Stone to the tune of $200? I didn't have Season 1, I had played a friend's copy of Season 1, and I really enjoyed it. But again, $200, you don't need to, by the way. You don't need to pay that much to get into the Dice Stone universe at this point. There's lots of ways to get into it very cheaply. You don't need to get too much. You don't need to get all of it. But I always have been a bit of an all-or-nothing personality when it comes to backing games, and that was definitely true for this Dice Stone system. So again, I wrestled, I went back and forth, I checked with my wife, I checked with a few friends of mine, like, would you play this game, would you not? I was really doing heavily, like, the whole, is this worth spending $200 on? Now, I do still have it, to its credit. I still have it, you know, 5 years later, I still have Dice Stone. It's not one of my favorite games, but it is consistently good. It is consistently enjoyable. My wife enjoys playing it, so it's a regular table game in our collection. It is one that I find it consistent. That's the key word I use. It's consistent. It's good, it's enjoyable, it's accessible, it's easy to pull out and play with others. It is not the best game in my collection, not by a long shot, but it's one that I'm always happy to table, and it's still around. And then we have Cthulhu Death May Die. This is the one that started my descent. Again, I always use this line, but this is the one that started my descent into madness. Pun intended, but it is true. Cthulhu Death May Die is the first time that I finally threw off the reins and started backing games gung-ho. You see, after Rising Sun, there was hate. Kaman had hate after Rising Sun, and I held strong against hate. It was one that looked compelling, looked interesting, but I was like, I don't know what's going on here, and I don't need to back every Kickstarter. Like, sure, I finally backed a few now, but I don't need to back everything. I did, by the way, later then I later tracked down a copy of Hate on the secondhand market, paying a higher premium to get my hands in it. But that's a different story. But at the time, I had self-control. Cthulhu Death May Die popped up on Kickstarter, and I don't know why I backed it. At this point, I was following Kaman as a creator, which was probably my first mistake. But it popped up on Kickstarter. I took a look at it, and I was like, I don't really like Cthulhu games. I never liked Arkham Horror. I'd played Eldritch Horror and liked it, but not loved it. I don't know what else I tried in this system or series at this point. I don't know the timeline of what came out where. But the Arkham series of the Arkham genre is one that I didn't particularly love. But this looked like it might be different. This had you punching Cthulhu in the face. It seemed more interesting. It seemed like it was less, gather 3 clues and roll a dice check to see if you do or don't close the gate. And it seemed like it was far more level up, power up, smash down the baddies, and have fun, which is more my genre. It's more my jam. And so I backed it thinking that it would not be for me. This is one that I did back, and I did back it all in. This is one of those first times. I was still along with the journey, the process of of seeing stretch goals unlock and thinking to myself, no, I want 14 more people to go ahead and back so we can cross that next line. I still bought into the stretch goal system, still believing that it was fully, completely about what people funded and that it wasn't like a planned series of mostly what would come out, with degrees of adjustment accommodating for sure. But I still bought very heavily into like, no, get more people to back it, get more people to do this, to do that. And I agonized over every update that had an add-on. Do I get those add-ons? Do I not? Do I need Season 2? Do I need that add-on pack? Eventually I settled for it, went all in, and honestly I wish I had bought an extra set of those marble dice, a problem I hope to fix with the current Kickstarter that just happened. But this was one that I jumped into, and it's one that has held strong for me. Forget held strong, it's one of my favorite games in my collection, and it's one that I have no regrets on, but it definitely was one that I backed, kind of expecting not to love it quite as much as I did, kind of expecting that I made a bad choice, but something about it compelled me. I mean, even the miniature art style, like, it's not my jam. This whole, you know, noir genre, it's not the thing that pulls me in, but it worked for me. The games worked for me, the systems have worked for me. I am very, very happy about this game, very excited for it, and this is the one that after this is when I started to try to chase down Kickstarters. Up until now, I was still seeing them as they came through, still being slowly exposed to them, but after here is where I started to start looking for them actively and to be on Kickstarter as a platform, to follow along with the process, with the stretch goals, with the unlocks and all of that, and Cthulhu May Die is very much still here. Then we have Wild Assent, which is still here. I love Wild Assent. I think Wild Assent is excellent. It's one that I'm very much looking forward to Levon Rising, because I think it takes some of the edges of Wild Assent that I didn't love and makes them even better, adding more story, more choose your own adventure, an easier setup versus the encampment mode as far as how that system works. But effectively, Wild Assent is a game which you're trying to control 4 hunters as you wander into the wilds and try to hunt and kill various creatures who are trying to kill you. You're trying to kill them for their materials so you can use them to craft various things, so you're trying to hunt and capture them so you can sell them at the marketplace and then use that to upgrade your encampment as much as possible. I really enjoyed this system. Rulebook's a bit of a mess, not the cleanest, easiest thing to get through, but I really enjoy the campaign game that this gives you. It is short, it's accessible, it's 10 games, that's all it is. It's very manageable as far as getting through all of that. I really like Wild Assent, and it's one that, it's an excellent game. It's an excellent game, and I love it, and yeah, this is one that's still around. Then we have Monumental. Now, Monumental from Funforge, which the expansion for this is currently in its own little question mark as far as how or when things will be delivered, but it seems like they're trying to deliver things. It just seems like it's taking time, because it seems like Kickstarter and crowdfunding has been a bit of a mess for them. But Monumental is one that I went in on uncertain how it would work out for me. It had a very cool system as far as how laying out the cards and trying to play out the cards to, what's it called, laying out the cards in a 9x9 a 3x3 grid, 9 different cards, and trying to activate rows and columns of those cards in order to activate all your things. So it has a degree of deck building, a degree of area control, and overall it's one that I very much liked. It is one that almost left at one point, but Jeremy Howard managed to convince me to give it a few more plays, and I did, and it's still here now. It is one that I don't play often, and to that end I don't know if it's a forever game, but it's one which the quality is off the top, and as well as that the gameplay is highly enjoyable. So both gameplay and quality are very, very solid. I don't play it a lot, and it takes up a lot of table space, so there always are question marks as far as whether it sticks around forever, but it's one that I very much enjoy for right now. We have Projekt Elite from CMON. Another game that I don't know if it's a forever game. I don't know if this is a forever experience, but it's one that very much is around for now, and I think it will stick around for a while. Projekt Elite is just a hard game to table. The real-time nature of it means I just have a harder time finding the right group to play it with, but when I do play it, I have a great time with it. The original Projekt Elite is one that I had played, so I had played the original Projekt Elite. I love the original Projekt Elite. This gave you just better miniatures and better production for that. Mostly better miniatures. Some of the sculpts I don't love, but overall this one gives you a solid real-time game of trying to frantically roll dice to accomplish your goals, slowly moving the enemies towards you and trying to take them out. You have that sense of panic and timers going on. It's one that does take like 3 to 4 players in the right mood, the right zen mood to get it done, but it very much is an excellent experience that's still sticking around for now. We have Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef. This is one of 3 games here that I have not played, and this is the only one of those 3 that never actually made its way to my collection. Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef is one that I backed, then I kind of canceled my pledge, and then I late backed it because I had second thoughts about canceling my pledge. Then when it was eventually arriving, there were complaints about the game. Overall well-liked, but the complaints about the game specifically were complaints that, to me, fed into the whole... it fed into the very concerns I had about the gameplay. The Champions of Midgard style approach of trying to accomplish things, committing, and trying to figure out how much to commit or overcommit as you did or didn't get things done. And I didn't love that system. And so it's not that the game was bad. The game was liked, but the specific complaints were the things I thought I wouldn't like. And so I eventually sold my pledge before even playing it. It's still one I want to table. It's still one I want to play, and it's still one I think is worth getting to the table at some point. But it's one that for right now it's one that I am okay passing on. And yeah, not in my collection. Then we have Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice. This is one that I assume will leave at some point. I do assume it'll leave, but it's one that I very much love. I still didn't finish the campaign I started in this one. I'm like 15 to like 17 games into it. I really enjoy what this is doing. This is bringing you the V Commandos, the V Sabotage system from Triton Noir, and it's putting the Assassin's Creed license on top of it in a way that really strongly worked. I really enjoyed going through this. The only problem is it is a campaign game, and campaign games I do find harder to consistently get tabled, because once I'm done with, like, again, I played 15 games of it or something like that, or 12 games, 13 games, and I went back in later for like another 3 or 4, but then since then I just haven't pulled it out, and I have that mental aspect of, am I prepared to try to figure out where I was up to and what I was doing? That's my main problem with campaign games, that thought process of, am I prepared to try to re-figure out what I was doing? And that often makes it so that I'm not going to pull out a game again if I don't complete the campaign in a single continuous setting. I have a few games on my shelf that I'm mid-campaign on, either legacy or campaign, that I just don't know if I care enough, and then I have to question whether to restart or move on from it or just spend the time trying to figure it out. But past that complaint, I think Assassin's Creed is excellent. I think it took the V-Sabotage system and improved upon it. My problem is I don't know which one will stay, because one's campaign, one's not campaign, and that is a problem for me. But past that, I think this game, the theme is amazing, the gameplay was incredible, the stealth feeling was really well done, there was a lot more mitigation built into Assassin's Creed. I solidly enjoyed this one, and it's still around, and if it does leave, it's leaving not because it's not a great game, but because I've played it enough to consider that I got enough out of the experience. We have Street Masters Aftershock. I like this one. I backed this one. I was very excited for this one. This is when I started to dive more into solo play in general, and I was very excited for this system. From Blacklist Games, it's a well-rated system, well-loved. Many solo gamers love it. It's a very enjoyable system, supposedly, and I liked it. I did. I walked away from it thinking I would rather just play Marvel Champions, though, and so eventually, 4 or 5 plays in, I was like, this is great. This is very cool. Also, I'm going to play more Marvel Champions and move on from this one. I think it's excellent. I think it's great, and it's no longer in my collection. Then we have Skulk Hollow, asymmetric 2-player game with epic meeples. This is one that didn't work for me. The feeling of it was very compelling. The 2-player asymmetry, the little root style or red wall style kind of miniatures, like, you know, the system of trying to take down this giant. It's a game that's well liked, but for me it just didn't work and did move on from my collection. We have Reichbusters from Mythic Games. This is one I was so excited for. I was so excited for Reichbusters. It's one that I was just incredibly excited to dive into. The video was so well done, really compelled me, really made me feel like I'm going to love this universe in this game, but it's one that I didn't end up keeping. I played it a few times, and I just found that the systems at play were good, but they were a little bit too much in terms of the stealth checks and ways that got in the way, and I found myself thinking the entire time that I love the setting, I love the miniatures, I love the production quality, but I'm just going to pick Zombicide every single time. It's one that I'm still interested if they ever come out with a second edition or a revised reworking of it. I think there's a lot of promise in this one, but I think that for me, the theme, the artwork, and the miniatures were the main draw, and the gameplay for me ultimately was not. We have Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. I finally only just dove into this one, and I don't know if this one sticks around, especially with Tainted Grail, Kings of Ruin coming out, and that one having a cleaned up system as far as the menus and the way you have to manage or navigate around the grind of the experience. So I think that Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon is one that is potentially at risk only because Kings of Ruin, I think, might do it better. The system itself, though, is solid. The system has a solid degree of exploration, a solid degree of upgrading your characters, a solid degree of just general choose-your-own adventure in a dark, grim fantasy setting. Overall, very much enjoyed what little I have experienced of this one. I've played only the intro scenario of Tainted Grail, and I've played the 2 scenarios of Kings of Ruin, so I know I like the system, but I don't know if I like the system enough to have, like, you know, 4 Calyx cubbies full of it, and so this one might leave only because the older brother, when eventually shows up. I still plan on diving into this one, at least for now, though. I don't imagine I dive into all the campaigns that they have, but I do plan on diving into this one, at least initially, to see where it goes for me. We have Blood Rage Digital. This is still around because it's more content for Blood Rage. And it's not just Blood Rage Digital, to be very clear. They had a physical Viking pledge giving you more content, more stretch goals, more things to add to your game, upgraded components, golden gods. They had a bunch of stuff. And yes, I have all of it. I love Blood Rage, and so I backed this. And yes, I technically have the Blood Rage Digital's game on Steam. I don't think I've ever actually played it on Steam. And it's one that I love Blood Rage, and I'm happy to have more content for it. So yeah, it's still around. We have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventure City Falls. This is the new version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles system from IDW Games that no longer is a company, I believe. And this is one that I tried it, expecting to love the cooperative system of how you share and split dice, but it didn't work for me. I found the overall system to be... It didn't compel me. Something about the gameplay, something about it. I remember watching Man vs. Meeple videos and watching them play and being like, I think I'll really enjoy this system, and ultimately I just didn't. I found the characters had a degree of interestingness to the abilities they had, and the sharing dice system seemed like it would be fun, but past that, it was fun. It was fun trying to communicate and navigate with the other players as far as how to share dice to the players to the left and the right, but ultimately the core system of what the gameplay was I found that didn't work for me. Many skirmish games are going to be hit and miss as far as finding the ones that pull you in versus don't, and this one ultimately just didn't. We have Vindication. I love this game. I have this game. I'm going to keep this game for a very long time. It's been in my top 10 for a while, and I just love it. This is my first experience. This wasn't me backing the expansion. This was me getting Vindication for the first time. I had heard about the game. This was the second Kickstarter, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to bite the bullet and try this game out from this company, and I love it. I love the puzzle of trying to figure out how to navigate your way towards the end game, to navigate your way towards getting more victory points than other players. It's all about trying to figure out what you're going to do on your turn and what combination of all the things, the companions, the locations, how you're going to puzzle out your ideal win scenario, and then just acting on that. Solid game, still around. We have Valor Villainy, Minions, and Mordak. Good game, very good game. I ended up getting rid of this one primarily because I found that the new one, Valor and Villainy, Ludwig's Labyrinth, I found it gave me the same gameplay feeling of Minions and Mordak, but I preferred the cooperative aspect of the gameplay, and I also found that it gave me a shorter gameplay. So the main problem I had with Valor and Villainy was it was a one versus many, and I kind of was totally fine with it being co-op, and then also the fact that it just took too long for the experience it gave me. I liked it, I really enjoyed playing it, but I thought it was too long for the experience it gave, and Ludwig's Labyrinth kind of addressed both those problems. Production quality, this is excellent across the board. Ultimately, it's a question of game length, and then, yeah, the play style. I was fine with the one versus many, but it did depend on the gameplay, and so I think I prefer the co-op system that Ludwig's Labyrinth gave us. So this one is gone. We have the Hall of Mountain King. This one lasted for quite some time. It even temporarily broke its way into my top 100 before eventually it is one that I got rid of, although it's one that I still like. There are hard decisions to make in general when it comes to keeping games, and the Hall of Mountain King, I loved the cascading resources that this game gave. I loved it. I gave this a game a 4 to 5. It's really, really incredible, really solid, and I found that I just loved the cascading resource system that the game gave, but I was only okay with the polyomino puzzle, which made it so it's a game that I both loved and eventually was fine moving on from. They actually have Fall of the Mountain King just arrived, and that one I hope to be diving into more soon. That is my favorite of Burnt Island games, but yeah, it's a great game. It's just a great game that ultimately the polyomino puzzle didn't reward me as much. I'd love to see the game the game done again with the cascading mountain system, like or a third version of the trilogy, you know, the something of the Mountain King, keeping that cascading resource pool, because I love that aspect of the game, but with a different system underneath it. Because the polyominoes felt more like you were trying to create pathways as opposed to that often making a polyomino grid. Until you're building those cavern tiles, the polyomino grid of exploring didn't feel as rewarding. So I both liked the game. I loved aspects of the game and liked aspects of the game, and the net result was one that stuck around for a while, but eventually left. We have Wavelength. A cool concept from the creators of Monikers, and I love Monikers, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally down for this one, and people are raving about this one, and it's great, and the concept trying to perfectly guess, you know, by trying to guess what's hot and cold, and trying to line things up, it had a degree of getting in your teammates' heads in a way that felt really rewarding in theory, but in practice I found that this was vague. In practice I found that the game system didn't work quite as much for us, and it was one that gave you a few moments of, that's really cool, and then a lot of moments of like, oh yeah, you know, you're in the general range, congratulations. It just didn't deliver on the premise of always having these cool moments. Instead it was a premise of a decent game that occasionally had moments of, this is worth owning, but most of the time was not. We have Root, the Underworld expansion. I love Root. This is an expansion. That's all it was. I already had Root at this point. I already liked Root, and this was just getting an expansion to content I already knew I liked. So, yeah, it's still around. We have Ignite, the tabletop miniatures board game. This is one that I backed and really was looking forward to. And I do enjoy this game. It's one that I even played it online. Like I had a chance to play this one online before it arrived, and I really enjoyed this one overall. But when it finally did deliver, this is one that I still like it, and I still enjoy every play I've had of this game, but there were enough rough edges on the experience that I felt that it's one that wasn't going to get tabled quite as much. It's one that when I played it with my game group, consistently the feedback was, this is good, this is very good. Also, I'm not going to request it. And eventually I found myself realizing that the rough edges around the game, things like, things like the way the map was set up, where you're constantly incentivized to stay on the edge of the board, like, you know, there were aspects of game design that I didn't love about this, while loving the general feeling of coolness it gave. The fact that it's a skirmish game with deck building. I love deck building, I love skirmish, and the combination of the two generally worked. There were just a few small aspects. The fact that you're the final blow in a character. You know, if I do 2 damage to a character and you do the third and final damage, you get the win. I don't like that in games in general, and I did not like that in Ignite either. And so there were aspects of the game that were very cool and very enjoyable, and then rough edges that didn't work quite as much for me, and the net result was a game that left my collection. We have Kingdom Rush Rift in Time. This is Polyomino Tower Defense. I love this game. I think it's incredible. I really, really enjoyed this game, and I really enjoyed the follow-up Elemental Uprising as well, which hasn't yet delivered, but I've liked both these games. I have a full pledge for Elemental Uprising. I still have all my Rift in Time. It's an excellent game that I really enjoy and has managed to survive. We have Dungeonology, The Expedition. I've been meaning to this game in the past. I did not like this one bit. This game looked very cool. Everything, the miniatures, the art, the production looked amazing. And to me, the gameplay was meh. The gameplay was mostly take that, which I did not like. It's mostly playing cards to get in your opponent's way. It didn't feel like a game where I'm trying to do cool things. It felt like a game where I'm trying to bother you, and that's just not a system that works for me. This is one of the bigger letdowns I have on the list. We have Bloodborne, the board game. I got this game, I backed the all-in, I played it once, and I promptly sold it. I did not love Bloodborne the board game, although to be very fair and give credit where credit is due, the reason I didn't like it, and I've said this many times, is because it felt like Bloodborne the video game. So they did a great job making a board game for the people who like the video game. I didn't like the video game. I just thought I would like the board game more, and it felt like the video game. It had a whole degree of trying to manage your... The play in the system was excellent. The way the combat and the puzzle of trying to navigate your cards and your weapons and switching weapons and running on the board and accomplishing goals, it all felt incredibly like the video game, really solidly done. I just didn't like the video game, and so I didn't keep Bloodborne. To be clear, that's a me problem. They did a good job. Terraforming Mars Turmoil. This is an expansion to Terraforming Mars. I love Terraforming Mars. It hasn't changed. This is still in my collection. We have Alter Quest. This is the first of 2 games on this list that are in my collection that I have not played. Alter Quest. Again, these are the top 50. These are the last 50, the earliest 50 games I backed, or at least the earliest 50 games I backed that I have a record of. But Alter Quest. I want to play this. I've set it up twice to play it. I just found the rules to be annoying, and each time I ended up putting it away and tabling it. It's still on my shelf over there. I assume I'll play it before I get rid of it. I assume I probably should get that done at some point, because like I was really looking forward to this game when I backed it. Something about I don't know. I need to like watch a playthrough and just get it played. I need to get this over with. I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep it or not. I don't care if I keep it or not, but I certainly should get it played before it moves on. Then we have Splice and Dice, Too Many Bones. More content for Too Many Bones. I love Too Many Bones. Splice and Dice is still here. I haven't played Splice and Dice. I don't know if I ever will, but I like having all the extra content and Dart and the lab rats and stuff like that, so a win for me. Egizia Shifting Sands. This was a reprint of Egizia, which is a game I got rid of. I saw Shifting Sands on Kickstarter, and I was like, you know what? I should get that back, because it was a good game. It was a good game. I also got rid of Shifting Sands again. Egizia has this fascinating mechanic of worker placement down the river. You're placing your tiles down the river in the game, and so what happens in the game as you play through it is you're trying to figure out what you want, because the further down the river you go, you can place your thing to get that cool thing, but you can never go back up the river. And so you're trying to pace out, trying to get as much stuff as possible, but also if you always take the last stuff, you're taking the worst stuff. So do you want more of the worst stuff, or do you want fewer of the better stuff? It's an excellent mechanic. I love it. I think it's incredible. The rest of the game around it, I didn't love. I thought the rest of the game around it felt a little bit not as good, and it's a mechanic I would love to see done again, and done a lot. I think it's a really good mechanic of that push your luck worker placement almost. I just didn't find the rest of like the stone collecting and trying to figure out where to allocate the stones. I thought Egizia, and this is my feedback the first time around too, by the way. For some reason I just thought the newer deluxe edition might save it for me. Sometimes that does happen. Sometimes a newer deluxe, cool, premium copy of a game can push me over the edge for it. Other times, there was a reason I got rid of it the first time. We have Monikers. This is still a game I still have. Monikers, serious nonsense with Shut Up and Sit Down. I already had Monikers. This is expansion content for Monikers. This is me getting all the expansion for content for Monikers, and I like Monikers a lot. It's an excellent party game. One that has not seen quite as much play as it used to post-pandemic, but not post-pandemic, since COVID hit or whatever. It has not seen as much play as it used to, but it is one that I think is excellent, and I'm happy to always have the 2 or 3 boxes it takes to just have a bunch of Monikers cards in my collection. We have Endeavor, Age of Expansion, another Burnt Island Games, and another Burnt Island Games game, this time an expansion, and one that I do still have. I haven't actually played the expansion, which is bad. I've played Endeavor's Age of Sail multiple times. I got the expansion. I've never tabled the game with the expansion. The expansion completely replaces some of the buildings in different ways. They even have a new Endeavor coming out. They have Endeavor Deep Sea or something like that over on GameFound. They'll be coming out at some point, redoing the Endeavor system from the ground up, which is one that I'm sure I'll get at some point because I love Endeavor, but I should probably play the expansion at some point. And this is one that might leave, by the way. Once you have the Deep Sea expansion or the Deep Sea standalone game, I'm likely going to decide to keep one or the other. So I really should play this expansion before I take that route. Then we have Dwellings of Eldervale from Breaking Games. I was very much looking forward to this one, and this is one that is good. And it's, well, I should rephrase that. It's generally considered to be great. This is a highly rated game. For me, this is one that was just good, and for me, it's one that I played it a bunch of times, I enjoyed it, I had complaints, and I moved on from it. This is one of those games where I got a lot of thumbs down in my review because people like this game a lot. When you as a reviewer say you don't like a game that people love, you don't get, people want negative feedback. People claim that they want negative critical reviews and critical content, but they usually mean they want critical content on games that they agree with you on, not the games they don't agree with you on, and it definitely showed with the amount of pushback I got on my review of this one. Again, I think it's a good game. It just wasn't good enough for me to keep based on my own preferences and tastes. We have Super Fantasy Brawl. This is still around. This is still around, still holding up. I don't play it as much as I used to when I first got it, but I do enjoy just being it. This is the kind of game where I am able to pull it out without referencing the rules and just set it up and just boom, we're going at each other's heads. It's not one where I learn the characters well enough. It's one that I'm always happy to pick a new character. It's just a brawling skirmish game. A brawling skirmish game where you're trying to accomplish goals and trying to kill other characters. And the whole combination, the whole package of what it's doing, it's fast, it's accessible, it's easy to table. I just really enjoy the gameplay that this gives me. And it's one that the variety of characters, because I have Season 2 as well now, just makes this an easy win for me. I maybe it'll leave one day, it's possible. Again, I don't play it as much as I used to, but I don't think it will. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. All games leave one day. Most games leave one day. I think it has quite a while to go before it's in danger. I think the production quality is excellent, and the gameplay is fast and accessible, and so I think it's going to stick around for a while. We have Shaolia, Warring States from Bad Comic Games. I got this one. It was an interesting one that just didn't... It was like dice placement. You're rolling dice, trying to build buildings and trying to just generate up your own tableau against your opponents head-to-head as you try to figure out how to take down their health or whatnot. I liked it. I didn't love it. I thought it was okay. I'd rather play games like Catan or Valeria Card Kingdoms as far as rolling and activating dice. No, it wasn't dice placement. I'm sorry. It's not dice placement. You're rolling dice to activate resources and buildings and whatnot. Anyways, Isle of Cats. Isle of Cats. I thought I would love this game. I thought I would. And to be fair, I do love Isle of Cats Explore and Draw. I love that one. But Isle of Cats, the big box game, for me, this is one that I held on to for a while. I kept in my collection for a year plus because I really wanted to love it. I wanted to hold on to it. I wanted to love it. It has drafting, which I love in most games, not in this one. It has polyominoes, which I love in most games. And yes, in this one too. I like the polyomino aspect here too. But the overall gameplay, I found that for Isle of Cats Explore and Draw, to me it had drafting that wasn't compelling, which is the biggest sin it could possibly commit. It had a lot of goals that were very rewarding different ways. It had an aspect I don't love in games where the modularity comes from mixing in cards. You have to like constantly unshuffle and reshuffle in different sets. And overall, I found that the full package was a very big box for a game that wasn't my favorite polyomino experience, not by a long shot. There were just other polyomino games that I enjoyed more. For me, Planet Unknown is a game that does Isle of Cats better than Isle of Cats does Isle of Cats. But in any case, past that, I found that overall when it comes to Isle of Cats, I really enjoyed it, but not enough to keep it, not enough to hold on to it. And it's one that the Explore and Draw, so this one's gone from my collection. The Explore and Draw version of Isle of Cats, that one has managed to stick around in a way that I really enjoy, and yeah, that one stuck around. I basically find that it gives me the Isle of Cats experience without the rough edges that I don't like about Isle of Cats. Now, this is a top 100 game, take that into account. This is my opinion. This game is well loved. For me, I like it, and I prefer Explore and Draw. Then we have Enchanters Odyssey plus Reprint. This is one that I have. I have the big box for Enchanters, and it's one that I enjoy. I don't know if it's one that sticks around. I'm not sure on that one. I do enjoy playing Enchanters. Every single time I enjoy it, but I just find that as much as I enjoy playing Enchanters, it's one that I don't find that I love. I always have a good time playing it. I always enjoy building my tableau, slowly increasing the items and the enchantments in play. I do very much like it, but it's also one that I find that I just like as opposed to really heavily love. So yeah, it's one that I still around for right now, but I don't think it's a forever game for me. We have Trudvang Legends. Trudvang from Command Games. I was really looking forward to this game. Not when it first came out on Kickstarter. I thought I wouldn't back it, but then after it came out and I looked into it more, I was really compelled by the experience it seemed to promise. And then I played it. It finally showed up, and I've played this one. And I like it. I do. I played like six games of it, 6 sessions or whatever it is, and I'm ready to move on from it. It's one, or I have moved on from it. It's gone at this point. It's one that I like what the system is doing, but I find that I don't like it as much as other games that do similar things. Specifically, roleplay adventures are going to be a good comparison point, but there are others as well, where games that give you a degree of choice of story, of lighter gameplay. I found the gameplay in Trudvang Legends to be too repetitive, to the point that I just wanted to not fight the same enemies again and again with the same system, with the slow leveling up. The story, the choice, the maps, all that stuff was pretty solid, but I found that the full package of Trudvang Legends was good, but certainly not great. It was a 3.5 out of 5, and a 3.5 that wanted me to commit hours and hours and hours and hours of time to the story and the campaign that it offers, and I'd rather put that many hours into finishing Assassin's Creed or playing roleplay adventures or many other games. Time of Legends Destinies. Or just Destinies, I guess, at this point. This was rebranded to just Destinies from Lucky Duck Games. This is one that's still around. Now, I just mentioned Roleplay Adventures. Destinies, I find, is suffering compared to Roleplay Adventures. I found that Destinies gives me a great degree of story and lighter mechanics, but still rewarding mechanics, and not repetitive in the way that Trudvang Legends is. And Destinies is really, really well done, and I really enjoy the system. It also relies on an app, and I consistently find that even though I'm fine with the app here, I do find myself pulled in by games that don't rely on an app. I'd rather play Tainted Grail without the app. I'd rather play Roleplay Adventures without the app. And so, there's no app for Roleplay Adventures. And so, Destinies is one that still is in my collection, is still sticking around for a while. I don't think it's going anywhere. If it had better solo play, I think it'd be much, much better. I want excellent solo play for this. It doesn't have excellent solo play. It has okay solo play, and for me, that's the big strike against it. It is the game. It is the kind of game that, despite me giving it a 5 out of 5 when it came, it is a game that has gone down for me, and it's a game that I could see it leaving one day. Today is not that day, though. I still want to go through a lot more content. I still want to play it a lot more. The only reason it would leave at this point is not because I don't like it. It's because I like other games better that do the similar things without the app. Still like it. Still sticking around. No regrets here. Moving on, we have Command Time Machine. This is just an access to Command's vaults in order to get expansion content for various games. I'm pretty sure I didn't get any full games when I backed this. I think I got I got more content for Dogs of War, some more content for Rising Sun at the time. I still own Rising Sun. I can't remember everything I got, but this is basically just expansion content. Some of it's left, some of it's gone. This is a little bit of a mixed bag. We have Everdell, Spiral Crest, and Belfair. This is me diving into the Everdell system. This is the first time, I'm pretty sure this is the first time I got Everdell. Did I just get expansions? I think this is when I got all the Everdell content for the first time, I'm pretty sure. I believe I may have picked up the Everdell base game later, but I got a full all-in for this. This is me diving to Everdell. I finally played it, if I recall correctly, but I'm not certain. But I wanted the game, and this is one that I love. I love Everdell. Still haven't played with the expansions. It's still one that I need to get the expansions played, or at least past. I played with the newest one from the collector set All-In. I haven't played with Spirecrest or Pearlbrook or Belfair, and it's one that I need to play with all of those. But I love Everdell, and this is one of my favorite games. Despite having only really played the base game extensively, it is still one of my favorite games. Then we have Oathsworn Into the Deep Void. This is a new one. This is the newest one on the list, I think, as far as games that I've been played. This is a really solid game. This is going to be sticking around my collection for quite some time. It's getting rave reviews by almost everyone who's played it. I would say, if you're on the fence about Oathsworn, if you're in any way torn and you want some critical feedback, check out Board Game Ramblings. They were not as into this, and that's a good thing. I always, whenever a game's getting a lot of hype, I like to recommend the non-hype review, because it's good to get that dose of reality. You see all these people loving the game, and you're like, boom, I'm spending $300 in it because everyone loves it. Understand that not everyone loves it. You might fall into the camp of everyone loving it. That's totally fine. But not everyone does, and it's worth knowing about those opinions to see if those opinions resonate with you. And that's Oathsworn Into the Deep Void. A really solid game. It's going to stick around for quite some time. We're down to 3 left, and we have Zombicide 2nd Edition. Zombicide 2nd Edition is... I mean, I played it a lot. I gave it the full campaign, plus a few plays outside the campaign. So what is that, 12, 14 games, something like that? I don't know exactly. I didn't play the second campaign, didn't bother for that. I liked Zombicide 2nd Edition. What I did not love is the fact that it felt way too easy the entire time. I was excited for this to arrive, and then it arrived, and it just felt way too easy. We almost got to the point where we were doing stupid things just for the sake of doing stupid things, and we couldn't die. That's not a good sign for me in any Zombicide game. One of the biggest things I've always said that I want in Zombicide, and it's true, is I want the variability of the experience. I want the games to feel challenging. I think I was thinking of the fact that I also want more zombie variability that's in the story. But I want them to feel like it's actually hard and difficult, and this one did not feel hard and difficult, and so ultimately it left after that. Number 2 is Chronicles of Drunagor, or number 49 technically. Chronicles of Drunagor, The Age of Darkness. This is a really solid game that also is a lot to table. That might be, if it ever does leave, it's going to leave not because it's not a good game, but because it's a lot to table, and because of that I don't pull it out a lot. But Chronicles of Drunagor is an excellent game. An excellent game system. I have the new Age Apocalypse content coming as well, with the way they reworked the content for the original game to make it more choose-your-own-adventure, more interactive in what it does. But it's a game system that I think is excellently well done. I think it's very compelling. I think it gives you great art, great characters, a lot of great things happening in this game. It is a lot of boxes and a lot of content. It's one of the downsides, and then the amount of setup time and teardown time between scenarios makes it hard. It makes it a lot. But it's a very solidly rewarding experience to go through, and it's one that's definitely still around. And then lastly, we have Titans, a historical fantasy miniature board game from Go On Board, who did The Witcher. And I don't have a lot to say about this one because this is the second one that I have not played, and so 2 out of the 50 I have not played. And with that, let's go ahead and do a quick recap, because basically, let's go ahead and take a look here. If we go ahead and look at the full summary of everything, of where we're up to, all that stuff, basically what we have is as follows. There are 50 games, and this is the thing I was most interested in, because I'm interested in like my own data, like how are things going as far as games going? Should I be backing fewer games? Or am I mostly just backing and getting rid of things? And so the starting baseline from games that I backed years ago we're talking about 27 out of 50 of those games I still own. Out of the 50 games I backed, 27 are still here. A lot of them are expansions, we'll get to that in a second, but 27 of them are still here. 2 of them don't really count though, because 2 of them are Titans and Altar Quest, which I haven't even played. So those 2 I haven't played, which means technically 25 out of 50 are here, and 2 are to be determined, although it could go either way on both of those. I think Titans will stay, I think Altar Quest won't, but we'll find out. So that's not bad overall, considering how far back we're going and how many of these choices are the choices and decisions I made well before I was actually more critical about what and how I back things. Although I back more now, but I'm more critical about how I do so. One of those games is at risk, Enchanters. From the ones that I've played and kept, only one of them is strongly at risk, which is Enchanters. There are others that might leave in context and situations. Destinies could be replaced if, like, it don't play it long enough for enough time. The Assassin's Creed might one day leave. Tainted Grail might be replaced by Kings of Rune. But most of those are, like, off into the edge distance where I can see a way in situation in which something leaves. But they're pretty safe for now, so only one of those is really at risk. The biggest question is a lot of those are expansion games, and expansion games are easier to say that you're keeping for one reason or another. If you eliminate any form of expansion content and you only go to base games, there are 33 base games, of which I've backed 15, of which I've kept 15 of those 33. So the numbers get a little bit worse when you go to expansion content. They go from 27 out of 50 to 15 out of 33, which is still pretty good, all things considered, especially as far as how back these things go. But the more important thing for me is the quality of the games. Out of those 15 games, 10 of them were in my top 100 last year, and one of them I guarantee you will be in my top 100 this year. We have Santorini. It was my 85 out of my top 100 last year. Brass was 27. Brass is a great game. I love it. Cthulhu May Die was number 9 last year. It was my 9th favorite game of all time, and that might go higher this year. We'll see. Wild Assent coming in at number 18. I loved Wild Assent. It's giving me a great experience. Monumental, only just barely cutting it at 94. It's a game that almost left, managed to be saved. I don't know if it'll be my top 100 this year because I haven't played it in a while, but Monumental doing a solid job, a great game. We have Assassin's Creed at 58. It's so good. Even if it leaves, it's because of the campaign game nature of it, but Assassin's Creed is phenomenal. Vindication was my number 8 last year. It's an excellent game that I always enjoy and always have a great time playing. We have Kingdom Rush coming in at 89, and I think that will go up when I finally get the big box with the insert and making it more accessible and easier to table. I love Kingdom Rush. We have Super Fantasy Brawl at 76. It has dropped. I don't know where it'll be this year, but it certainly is still a great game that I really love. We have Destinies coming in at 57. Again, it might drop. I think it will drop, but I think it'll still be my top 100. And then we have Oathsworn, which I hadn't played last year, but I guarantee you Oathsworn will be in my top 100 this year. That's not even a question at all. The only question you can wonder about is where it'll be, and that we'll find out when we do my top 100. And that's where we are with this. Overall, I'm happy with the 50 first games that I backed. I think I've gotten a decent amount of quality content, quality games out of those games that I backed. Kickstarter in general, crowdfunding in general, is an interesting journey that we're all on as far as buying with our eyes and hoping that we actually like what we back. And I don't know what your numbers are like. They might be vastly different. You probably back fewer games. Which ones do you like? Which ones do you keep? How are they as far as the games you backed 5 years ago? If you look, here's what I'm curious about. If you look at the first 10 games you backed, just go back in your history, scroll all the way down, look at the first 10 games that you backed, and post in the comments below how many of those. Feel free to go into detail if you want, but I'm more interested in how many of those do you still have. My numbers seem to be about 50%. About 50% even going back that far back. And I think that's pretty decent. Overall, I'm very happy with the crafting journey I've been on and with the quality of games I've received, and that also does mean I'm just going to keep packing more games. In any case, until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.